Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but, in your car.
104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 123.
Oh, gosh.
This was my pick this week, Gunther's Million.
Well, this was a good one, man. Once again, when it gets to a weird, wacky sex cult, I'm in.
Well, I know, but it's funny that I was the one who picked this one this week, because it's usually you picking those sex cult ones.
I would have been part of Gunther's band.
Oh, hell yeah.
All day long.
So before we jump into this, at first, I only reason I picked it was because I kept seeing it on Netflix, and I was like, well, obviously, it's got to be something cool or something good if they're making a 4-episode thing about a dog that's a millionaire. At first, I was like,
yeah. A dog that's not just a millionaire, like a 400 millionaire,
a half a billionaire. And so at first you start hearing the story about this dog named Gunther, who was owned by some sort of countess in Germany, who didn't have any family. She loved the dog more than anything because it was named after her son, who had committed suicide at 26. And she leaves it in the care of a man from Italy. And
she leaves all the money to the dog.
Yeah, to the dog. But then he is the man in Italy. Maurizio Mian is now the dog's keeper. So
this dude's a character.
Is supposed to be the one making the decisions for the dog to make the dog have the most amazing life possible. Best food, best place to stay. If the dog wants a yacht, they buy a yacht. If the dog wants a mansion, they buy a mansion.
The dog wants to record an album, they record an album.
How the hell do you know if the dog I'm
taking applications. If you have a dog that has inherited millions, I will trust.
Jay would love to be the handler.
I'll make sure the dog lives a good life.
Well, after a while, you start to kind of realize that you're like, well, how is this even legit? But it technically is legitimate. And they have a lawyer who says it is. They have a couple of people that are also in charge of making the decisions. If the dog
pretty big
wants
team of people to keep this dog happy.
I think at one point,
spend the money.
The PR guy who's kind of been with
he's the best of them all, man.
He says it right at the beginning. He's like, when this opportunity came in, I was like, well, I'm going to be the tick on that dog that's going to last forever.
Yeah, right. And
you kind of get the feeling that that's how everybody feels about this situation. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 123. We're discussing Gunther's Millions, and we'll get to more next on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 123, discussing Gunther's Millions. So, in the early 90s, this guy becomes the caretaker of a dog who was left half $1 billion, essentially. Well, who is the caretaker? Well, come to find out, his parents basically started this pharmaceutical company. It was very successful. It was they developed a drug that dealt with bone loss or osteoporosis. And at first, Gunther, the dog, is unhealthy, and Maurizio, the caretaker, claims that his family's drug actually helped cure this Gunther. Now, before you get a little confusing, it's not the same dog. Okay, I think they're on Gunther 6 now.
Gunther 6,
when this happened, it was Gunther 3. Okay,
yeah. There's been several Gunthers.
There's been a lot of Gunthers, and they continue to breed Gunthers so that it's like they're all within the bloodline. They're all the
dog dies, the first, next Gunther.
And at first, you're like, okay, I still don't understand.
Yeah, this countess just says, okay, I'm going to give the dog all this money and you run the show because they were a family friend. So, all right, okay, I guess.
So Maurizio, in a line with what was in the trust, which was also to find the secrets to happiness, creates these bands. And then at first they buy Madonna's mansion in Miami.
They buy Madonna's mansion.
And they create kind of like a pop band. And they're have a single called Wild Dog,
and the dog's barking on it. Gunther's barking on it.
It has it's awful and it's bad.
Well, they basically had a casting call for good-looking young people.
Florida, which there was a treasure trove.
Good-looking dudes, good-looking girls, all live in this house, and it was a big experiment where there was scientists there observing. This
Who
was
weren't
basically
actually real scientists.
It was like a reality show. It was basically like an MTV reality show before there was. And they were supposed to encourage to be wild, sexual, practice dancing, practice choreography, which they were not good at any of this.
No, couldn't sing, couldn't.
But they just lived a life in this mansion, lived the millionaire's life with no cares, no worries, and they were observed.
The goal of this was to see what led to true happiness. And this wouldn't be the first time that Maurizio would help do an experiment like this, because when things got a little too heavy and it got really weird, they packed up and they moved back to, what was it, Sicily, or it went back to Italy.
Well, they started getting some heat, right?
Yeah. So
neighbors were complaining.
Yeah, neighbors were kind of like, what the hell's going on? So they got him out of there. But then they would continue the experiment, this time with a bunch of Italians. And it was the same deal, but this time they created this, like, it was like an emblem that you would wear around your neck. There were 5 pieces of what led to happiness, what your sexuality was, your beauty, your talent, all these things, money, whatever.
And then you get some porn stars involved.
Yeah, Italian porn stars. And you get that dude that was a PR guy who claimed he was God. I actually
buy a soccer team, buy a yacht.
It's just, it's like there's got to be someone driving this bus. And in fact, there was. And we will get to what this really was all about.
Possible spoiler alert.
Next. Yeah. If you haven't watched it, spoiler alert in your next segment on Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 123. We are discussing Gunther's Million. So this was 4 episodes or 5? I was thinking it was 4, right? 4 episodes in the series. Yeah.
4 or 5. Yeah.
4 and 5. As these stories just keep coming to spending money at this dog, all the weird sex stuff, all these weird experiences about happiness, they keep going back to the Countess and her son and how Maurizio was good friends with him and he killed himself and all these weird things. I keep going like, where is this going? Where is this going? And then all of a sudden, it hits me. This is all a basic way to get out of paying inheritance tax. And so essentially what happened, and they finally corner him on it, and he tells the truth once which to me is like, I don't know why you would, he obviously, Maurizio has some mental issues, and he obviously has dealt with depression. He also likes publicity. He also likes pop music. He also likes to, it was pretty
a big scam,
girls.
Man. It was just a big scam, the whole thing.
But essentially the Countess thing was made up. And the dog getting all the money was a way so that they could just evade paying taxes in Italy. They put the money in with this, Countess in Germany, who then leaves it to the dog, which is now in a trust.
Which it was his own money all along.
Yeah,
it was his family's money all along.
Maurizio's money all along.
Incredible.
The whole thing, though, is crazy because
I respect the hustle.
Oh, dude, this was a well thought out plan, and it seemed to work. You look back to it at the interaction between him and his mother, too, right? In some of the stuff, like whenever they were doing the live satellite feed.
Oh, yeah.
And she goes, "Who's combing your hair?"
Yeah,
and you're like,
she was giving him hell.
So it's just
it was wacky, man.
A fool and his money. That's what this whole thing was about. A fool and his money, and all the hangers on around him that wanted to be a part of it, to claim that they were, appeasing this dog, when in reality it was all Maurizio and the people he kept around him. That one chick that he was with since day one, the other chick who he had a daughter with. They also tried to do genetic, trying to create a super baby, and
it was a wild ride, man.
It's like, it's bizarre. Now there is one part of this story which I think is horrible, and that is about the dog breeder, because Maurizio had hired a guy who was supposedly the best dog breeder as far as German Shepherds were concerned in Italy, to basically help continue the line of Gunther's, right? And they had a guy that came in and helped do that, and he just dropped the ball. And it's horrible what they did to these dogs, and ended up having to call the authorities on them, go in there. It was obvious they were being neglected. And luckily a rescue effort was made. They got all those dogs out of there. They got them adopted, and it's not a good look. It's not. That was the one thing. I mean, if you want to have a bunch of really hot naked chicks and dudes doing whatever they want in a mansion, and you got millions, dude, go.
I'm in. Jay Stevens is your guy.
You want to do a bunch of drugs? You want to have parties? You want to make your own pop band? Whatever. But if you're starting to create this dog,
the animals,
and you're going to screw with these dogs and abuse them in a form of neglect, screw you. And I don't care how much money you have, you're a dirtbag. Whether you knew about it or not, it's tied to you, and you're all dirtbags for letting this thing happen. And it's just it's crazy. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to kind of look past the fact that this whole thing was behind one guy and his need to create publicity.
I just create something.
It's just
he
so
was
bizarre.
All over the board, man. He was all over the board.
Why go this route to create publicity? I don't know. At the end of the day, I still think it's just to avoid taxes. and kind of get a little piece.
It was an elaborate scam. You got to respect this hustle.
Yeah, you got to. And we will give it our review as far as dog treats next. Gunther's Millions on Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio one more time. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 123. So how many dog treats would you give Gunther's Millions?
I'll give it a 3 just because it was a wacky story and there was, some of my favorite topics in there.
I figured there's a lot of people in there you would have loved to hang out with.
I would have been right there. I would have auditioned for those guys' group and hung out in that house with them.
Still living in Italy,
all day long.
taking care of a dog.
Now at 53, I'd do it. Yeah. I'll take care of the dog with you,
Some
bro.
of them still do, man. And they've been with this guy for 20-something years plus. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that spokesman guy.
He's been with them since the beginning.
Kid, man. Yeah,
the chicks that he's been with, same deal. It's just
some of the chicks kind of fell apart, though.
I wondered now, though, that since the thing's kind of out of the bag, do they have to continue to do the Gunther stuff?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, they still have the pampering the dog. To be continued. But it's like they just laid it out and said, no, it's not real. We're still gonna do it. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. I don't know if they
what is real. What is real?
I don't know.
What is real?
I don't know. Well, a dog's a millionaire, so I guess anything
there's money somewhere there. So hey, sponsor us.
I give it a 3.5 just because
3. I'm going 3 dog treats. It was cool. I didn't change the wheel for me, but
but at the same time, it's an incredibly crazy story and it's a well thought out scheme. And in the end, if you can screw over the government, I'm all in.
Yeah, if you can avoid paying taxes, we're your guy.
Yeah,
we support
day.
You.
Screw the man, screw him. It better be in your pocket than the government's
now
pocket.
we're going to get audited tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot.
They can have our empire of dirt.
Hopefully the IRS doesn't listen or we're both screwed. All right, so
I can't even afford a shirt half the time.
Yeah, and he's been wearing the same pants for the last
All right,
days.
my pick next week, right?
Yep.
All right, well, I'm going to have to go with every teenage boy in the 80s poster pinup dream, Pamela Anderson, the documentary Pamela in Her Own Words or whatever it's called on Netflix. I haven't seen it yet. I went inside unseen, but we all loved her. We all were big fans of Pamela. If you were a rocker in the 80s, you were a big fan of Pamela.
If you liked lifeguards in the 90s, you were also a big fan of Pamela. If you were a teenage boy in the 80s,
boy in the 80s, 90s,
you also liked Pamela. Chances are your first sex tape was obviously of Pamela.
That was also that might have been your first online, your first visual experience of how it's done.
We are gonna, for lack of a lighter word, dive in.
They set the bar high.
We're gonna dive in.
Who knew sex was better with sunglasses on?
Yeah, well, we're gonna find out next week on Dark Side of the Stream. We're gonna discuss Pamela on Netflix. As always, you can download these podcasts on our 104.7 The Cave app, or watch them live on Facebook every Thursday, 9 a.m. or 6 p.m. Or on YouTube as well. I'm Mike the Intern, and this is Jay Stevens reminding you we watch movies and take care of dogs sometimes, so you don't have to. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.